siblings. My name is Bill, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. In this video, I will be reading some stories from a collection called Neddie and Beckie Stubtail, the Two Nice Bears. Neddie and Beckie Stubtail. Story 1. Neddie and Beckie in Trouble. So many different kinds of stories as I have told you, my goodness me, sakes alive, and some molasses popcorn. I should think you would get tired of them, but I hope you do not, and as everyone likes something new once in a while, I thought I'd make up some new stories for you. I have been telling you about rabbits and squirrels and ducks and chickens. How would you like to hear about some little bear children? Not bad, savage bears, but nice, kind, gentle, tame ones who always minded the papa and mama bears, went to bed when they were told, and all that. Of course, I could tell you some stories about bad, growly, and scratchy bears if I wanted to, but I'd rather not, if it's all the same to you. Now then, for some bear stories. Once upon a time, not so very many years ago, there lived in a house called a cave in the side of a hill a family of bears. Their cave house was not far from where Jackie and Petey Bow Wow, the puppy dogs, had their kennel, and the bear cave was only about a short distance away from where Joey and Tommy and the kitty cat lived. There were 7 bears in the family, 5 grown-up ones, and 2 children. There was a chap named Neddie, who was a nice boy bear, as you would want to hear and meet. And there was a little girl bear named Beckie, and she was as cute as a soap bubble, if not cuter. Then there were the mama and papa bears, and their last name was Stubtail, for bears, have only a little short stubby tail, hardly a tail at all, to tell the truth. But still it is more of a tail than Buddy and Bright Eyes, the guinea pig children, have. Also living with this same Stubtail family of bears was an old gentleman bear named Uncle Wigwag. And the reason he was called that was because he was always playing tricks or telling jokes, and when he laughed after he had fooled anybody, he would wig and wag his head from side to side. Also, there was Aunt Piffy, who was so fat that she used to puff and pant as she came upstairs. And lastly, there was a real old bear gentleman named Mr. Whitewash. He was called that because he was all white. He was a polar bear from the North Pole, and he always wanted to sit on a cake of ice. So these bears lived together in the cave in the side of the hill, and they did many things about which I shall have the pleasure of telling you. Neddie and Beckie did the most things to tell about, but of course sometimes the other bear folks did things also. One day, when Neddie and Beckie had come home from their school, Mrs. Stubtail, the bear lady, said to her children, "Neddie, Beckie, I wish you would walk a little way through the woods and meet your papa when he comes home from his work in the bed factory." You see, Mr. Stubtail worked at making mattresses for beds. With his long, sharp claws, he would make the insides of the mattress all fluffy and soft, so no matter how wide awake you were, you always fell asleep when you stretched out on one of the beds that bear gentlemen made. "Why do you want us to meet Papa?" asked Neddie. "I want you to tell him to stop at the store on his way home and bring some honey," said Mrs. Stubtail. We are going to have hot cornmeal biscuits and honey for supper." "Oh, joy!" cried Beckie, clapping her paws together. Then she waltzed around in her hind paws, and she and Neddie hurled off down the road to meet their papa. As they were going along, they heard a voice calling out to them, "Oh ho, children, wait a minute. Here comes your Uncle Wiggily with some ice cream cones for you." "Oh, let's wait for our uncle, the rabbit gentleman," said Neddie. So he and Beckie waited, and they heard a rustling in the bushes, and their mouths were getting ready for the ice cream cones when out popped Uncle Wigwag, the joking old bear. "Ha ha," he cried, laughing and wagging his head. That's the time I fooled you." Neddie and Beckie were so disappointed that they did not know what to say. Uncle Wigwag was laughing at his joke, but when he saw how badly the bear children felt, he said, "Never mind, I'll give you each a penny and you can buy yourself some ice cream cones." So he did, and then Beckie and Neddie were happy, and they went on to meet their papa, while Uncle Wigwag looked around for someone else on whom he could play a joke. "We ought to meet Papa soon now," said Neddie, as he looked under an old stump to see if he could find any crab apples growing there. "A little farther on and we'll see him," spoke Beckie. They went on a little more, and all of a sudden Neddie saw a large hollow log lying on the ground. It was just like a stovepipe, only bigger, and it had a hole all the way through it. "Ha, I'm going to crawl through that hollow log," cried Neddie. "Better not," warned Beckie. "Maybe something in it might catch you." "Pooh, I'm not afraid," cried Neddie. "Anyhow, I can look all the way through, and there's not a thing in it." So he started to crawl through the hollow log. But my goodness me sakes alive, and some onion pancakes. Neddie had not gone very far before he found the hole in the log getting smaller. "I don't believe I'll be able to crawl through to the other end," thought the little boy bear. Then he tried to back out, but he could not. He was stuck fast inside the hollow log. "Oh, help, help," cried Neddie, wiggling and trying to get out, but he was tightly held. He could hardly move. "What's the matter?" asked Beckie from where she stood outside the hollow log. "I'm stuck. I can't get out," cried Neddie, and his voice sounded as if he were down a cellar. "Wait, I'll get a long stick and poke you out, just like you poke out the bean that gets stuck in your putty blower," said Beckie. So she got a long stick and poked it through the hollow log. All at once the stick came up against something soft. "What's that?" asked Beckie, surprised like. "Stop! Ouch, it's me!" yelled Neddie. "Stop it, you're tickling my back." "But I want to get you out," said Beckie, poking in the stick again. "You can't do it that way," said her brother. "I guess you'll have to crawl in after me and pull me out." "All right," said Beckie kindly, "I will." So she climbed through the log from the other end where her brother had gone in. "I'm coming," called Beckie. Then she grunted all of a sudden. "What's the matter?" asked Neddie, anxious-like. "I'm stuck too," answered Beckie. "Either I am too fat for this, or this log is too small. I can't move either way, and I can't help you." "Oh dear," cried Neddie. So there the two little bears' children were in trouble inside the hollow log. They wiggled and squirmed and did everything they could think of to get out, but it was of no use. They were stuck fast. I don't know how long they might have had to stay, nor what might have happened to them had not their papa come along just then from the bed factory. The bear gentleman heard cries coming from the hollow log, and listening a moment, he knew they were made by his children, Beckie and Neddie. "Aha!" cried Mr. Stubtail. "They are in the hollow log. I'll soon get them out." Then, with his strong claws, Mr. Stubtail made a big hole in the side of the log, taking care not to scratch Beckie or Neddie. Soon the hole was large enough for the bear children to come out about the middle of the side of the log, and oh, How glad they were. "I'll never go in a hollow log again," cried Beckie. "Nor I," added Neddie. Then they told their papa about Mama wanting honey, and they took him by the paw and led him to the store where the honey was sold, and bought some. Next day they all went home to supper, and Uncle Wigwag said it was a good joke on Beckie and Neddie to get stuck in the hollow log. Perhaps it was, but the bear children did not think so. But they liked the honey anyhow. Story 2. Beckie and the Buns. The next day, after Neddie and Beckie Stubtail, the little bear children, had been caught in the hollow log, and their papa had clawed them out, they didn't go to school. It was not because they were not well enough, for, after all, being stuck inside a hollow log doesn't hurt a bear child very much. You see, they have a lot of soft, fluffy fur on them. No, that was not the reason. Beckie and Neddie didn't go to school, and it wasn't because it was Saturday either. No, it was because there was no school on account of the teacher bear was having a toothache. And when a bear has a toothache, he really can't do anything. He has to go to the dentist right away. It was so with the teacher bear. On the outside of the schoolhouse door, the bear teacher hung a white piece of birch bark on which was printed, "No school today. I've got the toothache." "Oh, goody," cried Neddie when he read it, and he felt so happy, and then he tried to wag his little short tail, only he couldn't. "Why, Neddie, I'm surprised at you," exclaimed Tommy Cat, who was with his brother and sister, Joey and Kitty. He had also come to school. "Oh, I'm not glad because teacher's got the toothache," said Neddie Stubtail quickly. "It's just because there's no school." "Oh, then I'm glad," said Kitty Cat, purring softly. So all the animal children went home on account of the school being closed, and when Mrs. Stubtail saw Beckie and Neddie coming up the cave house, she exclaimed, "Why, what does this mean?" The little bears told their mamma, and Aunt Piffy, who had just come up from the down cellar, said, "Well, if there ain't no puff school, I can puff. Here are your lessons." You see, she puffed because she was all out of breath. "Oh, no, thank you," said Neddie quickly. "We'll have today's lesson tomorrow, so we don't have to study any now." Then he went out to have some fun, and one of the things he did was to watch his Uncle Wigwag and Mr. Whitewash, the polar bear gentleman, building a new room onto the cave house. It was a room made from a big hollow log, not the same one that Neddie and Beckie had been caught in, however, but another one. Mrs. Stubtail wanted her cave house made larger, so Uncle Wigwag suggested adding a hollow log for some sitting room. So that's what he and Mr. Whitewash were doing. And Neddie helped them by getting in their way every now and then, so they wouldn't work too fast and get all tired out. Finally, Uncle Wigwag said, "Neddie, I wish you'd go to the store and get me some red paint to color this log green." And never thinking it was a joke, off Neddie ran. Pretty soon after that, his mama wanted him to go to the store to get her a yeast cake so she could make bread. But as Neddie was not in sight, Beckie went. On her way home with the yeast cake in her paws, Beckie had to go past a house where some other bears lived. Now these bears were not nice and good. In fact, they were bad. And because they were bad, and because the Stubtail family was a family of good bears, the bad bears did not like them. Why, would you believe it, often these bad bears would take rabbit and squirrel and guinea pig children off to their dens to keep them there forever and ever so long, just as to be mean, you know. But none of the Stubtails or Mr. Whitewash or Uncle Wigwag or Aunt Piffy would do anything like that. Maybe Uncle Wigwag would play a joke or do something funny, but nothing that was real mean. And once Mr. Whitewash met a little boy kitten in the woods, Joey Cat, I think it was, and Joey was wiggling and squirming and twisting his way and that. "What's the matter, Joey?" asked Mr. Whitewash. "Have you the measles?" "Oh dear," exclaimed Joey. My back itches me terribly, and I can't reach the place to scratch it. Oh, dear. Now, there's nothing worse than to have an itchy place in your back and not be able to scratch it. Mr. Whitewash, the polar bear, knew that, so with his claws, he gently scratched Joey's back for him and tickled the little kitten boy very much. But if Joey had met one of these bad bears, why, my goodness me, and some peanut butter on your crackers, the bad bear would just as soon as not have taken Joey off to his den and made him pull chestnuts out of the fire for other bears to eat. That's what it was to be a bad bear. And that was the cave house in the woods, which Beckie had to go past on her way home from the store with the yeast cake. But she was not afraid, even of the bad bears. However, one of the bad bears, looking out of the window in his cave house, saw her coming, and he said to his brothers, "Ha, there's that goody-goody little Stubtail girl. I'm going to get her in here and pull her hair." "How are you going to do it?" asked another bear. "I will show you," spoke the first one. So he went to the cupboard and got a lot of sweet buns. Bears, you know, love buns almost more than anything else. If you ever want to see some tame bears in a cage or in a park, give them a few buns and see how they enjoy them. That is, if the keeper lets you, not otherwise. So this bad bear, who wanted to pull Beckie's hair just because she was good, threw a bun out of his window, and it fell close to the little bear girl, who looked at it in surprise. "Ha," she exclaimed, "that is strange. I wonder if it is raining buns from the sky." She looked up, but she could see none falling from the clouds, and because the bad bears who had thrown the bun was hiding behind the window curtains beside, Beckie could not see him either. "Well, I'll eat it," the little animal said, and she did, for it was a good bun, even if the bad bear did throw it. "Ha," said one of the bad bears to his brother, "I don't see how you're going to get her in here to pull her hair just by tossing buns at her." "You just watch," said the first bear. Then he threw another bun when Beckie wasn't looking, and this one he did not toss quite so far. It fell nearer the cave house of the bad bears. "Oh, joy," cried Beckie, seeing the second bun. "Someone is very good to me today." Ah, if she had only known. "See," exclaimed the one bad bear to the other, "that's how I'm going to get Beckie in here. Every bun she picks up will bring her closer and closer to us, and soon I can jump out and grab her." Oh, wasn't he a bad old bear? Well, Beckie ate the second bun, and then came the third, and sailing through the air. "Why, it surely is raining buns," cried Beckie in delight. "I mustn't eat them all. I'll have to take some home for Neddie." So she began to put buns in her pocket, and she never noticed that each one she picked up brought her nearer and nearer and nearer to the cave of the bad bears. The last bun was almost on their doorstep, and just as Beckie reached over for it, the bad bear jumped out and grabbed her. "Oh dear," cried poor Beckie Stubtail. But the bad bear did not get a chance to take her into the house. Just as they were going to do it, along came Mr. Whitewash, the kind polar bear. He was looking for Neddie to tell him Uncle Wigwag was only joking about the red paint to make a log green. And when Mr. Whitewash saw the bad bear grab Beckie, who had picked up the buns, and what do you think Mr. Whitewash did? Why, the big, brave white polar bear went right up to the bad black bear, and he cuffed him on the ears with his broad paws and pushed him back inside his own house. And then he tickled that furry creature in the ribs until the bad bear had to laugh whether he wanted to or not. And then Mr. Whitewash grabbed Beckie up under his paw and hurried away home and with her. And oh, how angry the bad bears were, because they could pull no one's hair. "Beckie, you must be very careful about going near that bear house again," said her mamma when she heard the story. "I will, but anyhow I got the buns," said Beckie as she gave Neddie some. "So that's all now, if you please. But the next story will be about Neddie and the bee's nest. That is, if the nutmeg grater doesn't scratch the piano and make it cry when the rubber doll tries to play a song on it.